There comes a moment in every life that does not announce itself loudly. It does not arrive with applause, clarity, or certainty. It arrives quietly, often disguised as discomfort, a sense that something is wrong, even when everything looks fine. A feeling that you are living, but not alive, that you are moving forward, but not becoming. Friedrich Nietzsche believed this moment is the beginning of real life, the moment when you realize that the life you've been living was never truly yours. From the very beginning, you were taught how to survive, not how to become. You were trained to fit, to obey, to adapt, to follow patterns that existed long before you were born. You learned what was acceptable, what was rewarded, what was punished. You learned how to behave in order to belong. And slowly, almost without noticing, you buried parts of yourself to stay safe. You called it maturity. You called it responsibility. You called it reality. Nietzsche called it sleep. Most people never wake up. They inherit beliefs, values, ambitions, and fears without questioning where they came from. They chase approval, stability, and comfort, believing these things will give their life meaning. But beneath all of it, there is a quiet emptiness, the sense that they are performing a role rather than living a truth. Nietzsche warned that this is the greatest danger of all. Not suffering, not failure, not chaos, but a life unlived. Your real life begins the moment you stop asking, "What is expected of me?" and start asking, "What is true for me?" That question is dangerous. It destabilizes everything. It challenges identities you've worn for years. It threatens relationships built on compliance. It disrupts routines that kept you comfortable, but small. This is why most people avoid it. They prefer certainty over authenticity, even if that certainty slowly suffocates them. Nietzsche believed that becoming yourself is not a gentle process. It requires destruction before creation. You must unlearn before you can learn. You must shed borrowed values before discovering your own. This is why awakening often feels lonely. When you step away from imitation, you no longer belong to the crowd. When you abandon the script, there is no applause, only silence. But that silence is not emptiness, it is space. And in that space, something real begins to grow. You start noticing how much of your life was driven by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of standing alone. You see how often you betrayed your instincts to maintain harmony, how often you said yes when your soul said no, how often you stayed quiet to avoid discomfort. Nietzsche would say this is the morality of the herd, a system designed to keep individuals predictable, manageable, and small. Real life begins when you refuse to live on borrowed courage, when you stop seeking permission to exist as you are, when you realize that obedience is not virtue and comfort is not meaning. The world rewards conformity because it fears difference. It praises obedience because it is easy to control. But growth has never come from safety. Creation has never come from consensus. Becoming yourself does not mean becoming selfish or cruel. It means becoming honest. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what excites you. Honest about what no longer fits. It means accepting that not everyone will understand you, and not everyone is meant to come with you. Nietzsche believed that solitude is not punishment, it is preparation. Before you can create your own values, you must step away from the noise that tells you who to be. At this stage, life feels unstable. Old identities begin to fall apart. Goals you once chased lose their meaning. Relationships built on expectation start to feel heavy. This can feel like failure, but it is not. It is transition. It is the shedding of a skin that no longer fits.
Most people turn back here. They retreat to familiarity. They call awakening a mistake and return to imitation. But those who endure this phase discover something rare: alignment. You begin to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. Decisions come from conviction rather than approval. Your path becomes less crowded but more honest. You stop comparing your journey to others because you are no longer trying to arrive at the same destination. You understand that meaning is not given, it is created, and creation requires courage.
Nietzsche spoke of becoming, not arriving, not achieving, but becoming. Life is not a fixed identity to be discovered. It is a force to be shaped. Your real life begins when you stop seeing yourself as something finished and start seeing yourself as something in motion. You are not here to repeat what already exists. You are here to express something that has never existed before: your perspective, your will, your becoming. This path is not easy. It demands responsibility. Once you awaken, you can no longer blame society, parents, systems, or circumstances for the life you live. You see clearly where you are complicit in your own limitation, and that clarity is uncomfortable. But it is also empowering, because what you take responsibility for, you gain power over. Your real life begins the moment you stop searching for a universal answer to a deeply personal question. For most of your life, you were taught, directly or indirectly, that fulfillment follows a formula. Study this, become that, reach this milestone, avoid that mistake. If you follow the path correctly, meaning will arrive at the end like a reward. But Nietzsche rejected this entirely. He believed that the idea of a universal blueprint for fulfillment is not only false, but dangerous. Because the moment you accept someone else's definition of a meaningful life, you stop listening to your own. There is no rule book that can tell you who you must become, because becoming is not a destination, it is a process. A living, evolving expression of your inner truth. The moment you realize this, something inside you breaks open. You understand that the anxiety you felt was not confusion, but resistance to a life that never belonged to you. You were trying to live correctly instead of authentically. And no amount of external success can compensate for internal misalignment. Nietzsche believed that meaning is not discovered, but created. It is forged through choices, through values you consciously choose rather than inherit, through actions that express who you are rather than who you were told to be. This requires listening inwardly in a world that constantly demands your attention outwardly. It requires courage to trust your own instincts when there is no applause, no validation, no guarantee that things will work out. But that is precisely where real life begins, at the edge of certainty. When you live this way, you become dangerous, not in the sense of harming others, but in the sense that you can no longer be easily controlled. You are no longer driven by fear of disapproval or hunger for acceptance. You stop being predictable. You stop moving only when conditions feel safe. Stagnation thrives on hesitation, on waiting, on the illusion that someday everything will be clear enough to begin. But clarity does not come before action. It comes because of it. You stop waiting for the right time because you realize the right time is a myth designed to keep you comfortable and still. You stop postponing yourself, telling yourself that one day you'll be ready, one day you'll be confident, one day you'll live fully. That day never arrives. Life does not begin after preparation. It begins when preparation ends.
When you step forward despite uncertainty, despite fear, despite imperfection. At this stage, your understanding of safety changes completely. You no longer see safety as the absence of risk, but as the presence of self-trust. You realize that avoiding risk never truly protected you. It only delayed your growth. True safety comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you can face it, that you can adapt, recover, learn, and continue. And that kind of trust cannot be thought into existence. It must be earned.
Self-trust grows only through action, through choosing yourself again and again, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it isolates you, even when it challenges the identity others expect you to maintain. Each time you act in alignment with your inner truth, you strengthen the bond with yourself. Each time you betray it, you weaken it, and over time, you feel the difference. One path leads to quiet confidence, the other leads to regret. This is why Nietzsche's philosophy is not comforting, it is demanding. It asks you to take responsibility for your life, not just intellectually, but existentially, to stop waiting for permission, to stop asking for guarantees, to stop outsourcing meaning. Your real life begins the moment you accept that no one is coming to give you the answers, because you were never meant to follow them. You were meant to create them. This is when your real life begins, not when everything is figured out, not when fear disappears, not when others approve, but when you stop living as an echo and start living as a voice, when you stop imitating and start creating, when you stop obeying and start becoming. Nietzsche did not promise happiness, he promised depth. He did not offer comfort, he offered truth. And the truth is this: you were not born to obey, you were born to become. And once you understand this, there is no going back.